This is Jake Seeley, and I'm the blown ACL that ruins your football season.
Good news, everyone! Let's get dangerous!
This is so cool!
I know.
It feels so right!
It's Jake Seeley.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Nice try, Moonman! Pretending not to know Earth's greatest mastermind!
You just made the list!
I thought you said that was a myth.
Just because it's a myth doesn't mean it's not true.
If you all blindly follow my plan, we may have a chance.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you ducks. You know what time it is. Victory lap time on Trevion Henderson. Now, just kidding, if you listen to the Pat Mayo show, you've probably heard Ian go on a little of a crash out about that and Travis Hunter. And jokes aside for Trevion Henderson, this is what we were hoping for when people were drafting him in the 5th or 6th round, and that even in a timeshare, he could be productive as an RB2. And well, with all the volume, we're seeing it. Top 10 running back. I will say, if Ramondre Stevenson comes back, I wouldn't be surprised if he does fall into the RB2 conversation just a little bit, just because Mike Vrabel still is very fond of Stevenson. But look, you're not going to be able to trade him away if your trade deadline is coming unless you're getting clear RB1 value. If you are and want to avoid the risk and, maybe buy low on Derrick Henry, I get it. But this might just be found opportunity if you were patient, picked them up off waivers from somebody else who drafted way too early and got frustrated. That being said, also in this game, it was a little disappointing. It was very disappointing. Adonai Mitchell looking like Quentin Johnston from 2024 out there. The good news is the opportunities are there. They need somebody to step up with Garrett Wilson out on the IR, and they said they plan to get him back this year. But all that being said, we know it's at least 4 weeks. Mitchell has the talent, always has had the talent, and we saw the opportunities of him flashing with the Colts. And then, of course, they traded him away with the frustrations. But there's still opportunities. He's a good kid, too, in the fact that he admitted it was on him in that game. So hopeful. I'm still stashing him in a lot of places on the bench for a wide receiver 5 type of scenario where maybe if everything breaks right and he is the lead option with no Garrett Wilson, that we might get wide receiver 3 value. That being said, we have to see how this quarterback situation continues to play out. But let's talk Week 11 and all the notes that you need before you get to your lineups. The Commanders not touching that backfield, complete committee. You saw Chris Rodriguez lead the way before he got hurt last week, so staying away as much as possible. Nothing of real note with the Dolphins, with the Panthers. Rico Dowdle is completely off the injury report, and I mentioned him as a buy high, or a buy in general, because there's people who don't believe that he's a top 10 running back, somewhat because of what we've seen before with him with the Cowboys, somewhat because of the Chuba Hubbard situation and how much the team loves him. But I'm buying high. I think the only concern is the injury risk. He was off the injury report on Friday, but another week of limited practices until then. So that's the only risk I have for him. I still think he's an RB1, and I would buy, if you're going to get him for an RB2 cost, I would buy Rico Dowdle. Falcons situation, Drake London is questionable. Sounds like he's good to go, but watch that just in case. Darnell Mooney wasn't droppable weeks ago when we talked about it in waivers, or I say you read that I talked about it in waivers. We also find out that he had preseason collarbone injury, broke it, and so just thank you for telling us about that. Falcons, I know it's preseason, that feels like kind of skirting the issue or getting around it a little bit in a gray area, because I doubt if he broke his collarbone, he was 100% in week 1. But anyway, that being said, Drake London's the one you got to watch. On the Buccaneers side, no Bucky Irving or Chris Godwin for another week, which means Sean Tucker, as I mentioned in waivers, is, I think, on the heels of Rachaad White at this point. And Cade Otton is a tight end 1, because Cade Otton with no Chris Godwin, tight end 1. Bills, no Dalton Kincaid. Speaking of tight ends, Shakir is in a good spot, quote unquote, not on the injury report on Friday. Still a little bit dicier than I think he would normally be, even though he wasn't on the injury report. He was limited throughout the entire week until then. The Texans, if you didn't see the DeMeco Ryans clip, he talked about the rookies. They asked him about the rookies, and he said, they're rookies, no more. Woody Marks, Jaden Higgins, a little bit of Jalen Noel. So I feel a little bit better about Woody Marks. I said I want to believe, and I'm a little hesitant to trust. I'm not going to push him inside the top 15. Kind of skirting the top 20. There's still risk there, even if he is the clear lead, and they are trusting him going forward, that Nick Chubb can get involvement at the goal line. Jaden Higgins, you know my feelings on him. I want to see him as the number 2. And if he is the clear number 2 and in front of Christian Kirk, which it looks like it might be happening, Marvin Jones, wide receiver 4 like value. So pick him up if you haven't already, or somebody else dropped him. With the Titans, Calvin Ridley is questionable all week. I don't know that if he even plays, and if he does, as you've seen, I do have him in the ranks, but as no more than a wide receiver 4 where you just need to play the upside and hopefully something clicks. Like, put it this way, if he is going to play, I'd be surprised if he's not out there for the entire game because they've waited this long and coming off the bye. But that's one to watch. Like I said, it'll still be a wide receiver 4 against the Texans anyway. DJ Moore is off the injury report for the Bears. I already updated him in the ranks and pushed Luther Burden way down. The Vikings are the Vikings. If you didn't see my clip, buy low on Justin Jefferson before it's too late. Even if it doesn't happen this week, I still love that 4-game playoff schedule. The Packers, Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks are both off the injury report, which means even if Matthew Golden plays, still off the radar. It's just Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. The Giants have no Darius Slayton. If you want to take a super fly, there's 2 super flyers you could take. Jameis Winston is at quarterback, so he's going to throw a lot. And it's not just going to be Wan'Dale Robinson and Theo Johnson. So if you need a desperation tight end, and Daniel Bellinger is good to go, we've seen how much they've been using 2 tight ends. And then on the other part of it, they brought back Isaiah Hodgins yet again. And I'm not saying Hodgins is immediately going to step in as a number 2, but we've seen other things like Treylon Burks immediately stepping in to be the number 2 for the Commanders. So super deep, 14 teams plus. I know there's some of you out there. If you're desperate, Hodgins could be in play. The Bengals, no Samaje Perine, which just means all the work for Chase Brown. If you're in a deeper league there, I would stash Taj Brooks just on the case. It's not that I think Taj Brooks is all of a sudden going to get 10 touches. It's just that if we have no Samaje Perine and he's still out next week and Chase Brown were to get hurt, just the next person up is Taj Brooks. Steelers, not much of note there. The Chargers, Oronde Gadsden is not on the injury report. So that just means what we know. Quentin Johnston actually is questionable, but it sounds like he should be okay. But Gadsden back hurts Johnston a little bit and kills Keenan Allen. If you didn't see my note about that, about 50% of the routes since Gadsden's breakout. So Keenan Allen's almost off the table. He's in a similar tier to like if Calvin Ridley plays. The Jaguars, Brian Thomas Jr. is questionable. Strange is out. If Brian Thomas Jr. plays, I would have him as a wide receiver 2. I doubt the Jaguars risk him unless he's ready to roll, but still risk with this team. The bad news is this would kick Parker Washington down to wide receiver 4 territory because Jacoby Myers, I get the risk that maybe Jacoby Myers still isn't 100% incorporated, but Jacoby Myers can play outside and in, which makes him the number 2 and Parker Washington the 3. Again, there's still upside with Parker Washington because, and that's assuming Brian Thomas plays, because what if Myers isn't 100% out there? So that's that situation. Risk across the board, basically, with the Jaguars. Seahawks are Seahawking. Cooper Kupp and Rashid Shaheed, good to go. I like the buy low opportunity on Shaheed. The Rams, Devontae Adams is questionable. Watch that one and have a backup plan in case he's out. The backup plan for me would not be on the Rams. They're just going to run the Arthur Smith splooge special, as I like to call it, with 3 tight ends. And maybe you need a desperation play at tight end. I would go Higbee, then probably Ferguson, then Parkinson. But they're all in play. It's just what they do. All right. 49ers, Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall are back. They're in the rankings. Purdy basically takes Mac Jones' spot, and Pearsall will rank behind Juwan Jennings, but this adds extra risk to George Kittle, who's already been hurt by Christian McCaffrey when Christian McCaffrey has been healthy, but now it's just another target out there. If you can't really bench Kittle, but if you have other options for Pearsall, I don't know, I'd look to roll him out in his first game back, again, unless you're looking for that high upside, high risk play. But speaking of tight ends, if you need one, and all these opportunities, the Arizona Cardinals, Elijah Hickens, who is essentially kind of a miscast-ish tight end, could be somebody that looked deeper leagues, similar to the Bellinger play, just because there's nobody left. We might see Xavier Weaver as the 3rd wide receiver for the Cardinals. So that just tells you there. The Ravens, make sure you're stashing Keaton Mitchell at this point. Justice Hill is out, and actually Keaton Mitchell would have been the first up, even in a timeshare, if something were to happen to Derrick Henry. The Browns are the Browns. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. And, well, Kareem Hunt being the starter with no Pacheco, you know that. The Broncos, R.J. Harvey, if anybody's been asking, I do have him as an RB2, but I am still hesitant because it is Sean Payton, and Sean Payton will likely use Jaleel McLaughlin and Tyler Bidet just because, heck, we might even see random Troy Franklin out of the backfield because this is what Sean Payton does. Detroit Lions, and why you might need a tight end, Sam Laporta is out. Just even extra stock up for Jameson Williams. Eagles, Cowboys, and Raiders. really nothing of note there. The Cowboys one where it's like if you're doing one of those deeper stash things and want to get ahead of everybody else, not that he's going to be a name to really super chase, but I think Phil Maffa, when he comes back for the Cowboys, could be in play as the backup to Javonte Williams because the Cowboys clearly just don't love Jaden Blue, but maybe something happens after the bye. Maybe we see a little bit more. But if not, that would be my backup plan for Javonte Williams. And if you need any backup plans, we'll be chatting between halftime of the Spain game this week. So make sure you check out that. And of course, Jay tweets, chats after I do on Sunday. But good luck, everybody. And, ow, I banged the table. That's what that noise was. That was my hand. Anyway, talk to you Sunday.